Hello again. We made it. It's the Friday, just before a long weekend with a bank holiday Monday. So great to see you guys. A smaller group today. We're gonna talk cloud security and what we have planned for cloud security for the summit and training sessions before the summit. I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Cool. Where would you guys like to start?
So one of the really cool ideas that we bounced off yesterday, which I think if we can pull it off, it could be really interesting, was to actually do a number of tabletop exercises. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you guys been involved in tabletop. Probably Tony, you've been, right? And Ben, and
games type stuff.
Yeah, kind of war games kind of style, right? And I think with a bit of creativity, right, and with a couple of interesting scenarios, with sort of the idea that you can have different rooms, right, or different groups, right, that kind of represent the devs, the security team, the managers, the developers, you know, the multiple players, right, the risk functions, etc., and actually then come up with scenarios. So that's sort of, I think we put it on the second day, on the afternoon, on the late session, you know, that kind of scenario exercise. But I think that for me is really struck a chord as is the kind of setup that can really work well for a lot of the summit stuff. Because I think the problem with, and you see it already, right, on these conversations, is that we can have a conversation, have a thread. It gets really hard to actually, you know, sometimes really create something where I think, you know, the idea that you can give scenarios and then people talk about the scenarios. So if I given at conferences, that actually worked reasonably well. I was at an event and they did one of these, and actually that was probably the best part of the event, right? Where each table had to almost come up with how they answer to that, you know, that particular scenario, which allowed a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion, a lot of expertise to come out of that thing, right? So I'm thinking that concept of like sort of tabletop exercises, sort of like scenario-based driven things that you can actually create a momentum. It's it's almost easier to kind of prepare, because you don't have to prepare like 2 hours of things. You just have to prepare 5 or 6 events. You know, like, you know, the Simon, I think you were on that Simon session with the company, right, for the investment thing, right? It was the same stuff, right? He creates a scenario and then he goes, well, what would you do here, right? What will you do at this moment in time? And then he gives you more information, and then what will you do now? So I think for some of these topics, it could be quite good.
And it'd be good, I think, to maybe, if you look across some of the subject area matter across the whole of the conference, try and include some of those bits in. The thing I found out, and I've done quite a few of these big exercises with the BBC around business continuity and around, is you need to have supervision and you need to have individual teams. But what I found most useful at the end of the exercise was to get a read back from all the different teams, because otherwise you're just in your little bubble and you do your actions. You don't see the effect of the consequences. And I think kind of getting someone almost like moderating across it that says, at the end of it, here's my conclusions and playing back.
Yeah, you do need a bit of moderation and probably even a little bit of, I was going to say, logistical organisation, like ferrying, especially if you've got 2 different rooms, you know, passing messages backwards and forwards based on certain things, coming into, you know, and having the different phases or steps, points in the scenario to then, you know, announce or pronounce the next, oh, this happened.
Yeah.
So if there are 4 groups, I mean, what with BBC, there was always kind of management, and then there was people dealing with it. So, and then you had someone playing customer. So you had the customer is kind of saying, what am I going to do? And management facing off them, and then management were holding them away from the actual people doing the fix. But I guess in this scenario, you also want an adversary as well, don't you? You want someone being the adversary, so that you, as the scenarios are changing, you're doing, you know, those guys are responding.
That's actually quite interesting, right? Like I guess actually that's really interesting, right? Because especially given the normal sequence of events, right, that things occur, because you tend to have a lag. So we could even say that the attacker group gets to decide what they do next.
Yeah. And I think
Right?
the other thing that would be really
That's why you pass it backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
So you're gonna red light, green light going off. But it's like a chess clock. But and also what really helped with the BBC is if it was grounded in reality. So what they did is they go back 10 years and they pick things that actually happened, and then they would use those because it really, quite often. I mean, we did a war game last year at IBC on the cybersecurity track, the media conference, and it was terrible because the guy had something against lawyers, and he just started off down this track of the lawyers, and the scenario is just he lost half the room because people just didn't believe what he was saying. So having something that's quite credible, I think, is useful.
So if you look at, for example, cloud security, right? We could do one of these on cloud security, right? If you think about it, you pick a scenario that it has to do with, with the hardening, with incidents related to cloud, with something that will happen in this now cloud environment, right? And then you can, I think we can seed it up. We can have several ideas. I guess especially, from the attacker point of view, we can have a good sense of what could be the steps, but we could even let that team decide a little bit, right? How far they want to push. But then it all depends on the bounce, right?
So wouldn't that be one of the scenarios that will be in the exercise rather than a complete separate activity on its own?
What do you mean?
So in that Wednesday session, we will probably have more than one scenario to focus on, or that big scenario might have different elements of cloud or on-prem or...
Yeah, but what I'm thinking is that some of these deserve almost a session on its own. So if you look at, let's say, cloud security, right? So the case scenario yesterday was a bit different, right? So if you look at just the cloud security, you can easily come up with a scenario just for cloud security, right? And then if we actually have a cadence that says, let's say, sorry, you got 20-hour minutes plus 10-minute presentation, or briefings, right? And then 20, 10, something like that. Then, really you only have 4 or 5 moves or 6 moves in the chase of the game of chess, right?
Yeah, these aren't kind of war games where you're doing it for a week. We're not going to have a huge amount of time to plan this. But if you just kind of call out, here is the scenario, misconfiguration or new threat or whatever it is, or vulnerability or breach or whatever the things are, then you could just get everyone doing the playbook, couldn't you?
Why is it different than the incident scenario exercise?
No, this is just a variation. This is exactly the same thing. There's a variation on the cloud side.
Have you guys seen the National Cyber Centre's exercise in a box?
Not as much as I want. That's a good model, isn't it? Can we use that?
Yeah, you just register for an account and you can use it.
Yeah. Is that worth reusing?
Put some of the structure and stuff in place, so therefore we don't have to.
So how does it work? Have you run it?
I haven't actually had an opportunity to run it. No, I have to admit.
What is it? Exercise in the box. Oh yeah, I've heard about exercise in the box, right? Small to medium. So, yeah, this is probably worthwhile taking a look at it. So is there like a web interface or just a PDF?
Yeah, web interface. It's a tool.
You share your screen?
They've got different scenarios as well, so we could pick a different scenario.
Can you share your screen?
Yeah.
Where are you finding it? It's like I saw the...
If you're on there, Tony, why don't you share your screen?
I'll stop sharing so he can share.
Yeah.
Okay, I stopped.
Oh, the PDF. Oh, exercise in the box. Yeah, online tool. Where's the tool?
Here we go.
Yeah, I found that. Okay. So what you need to create is, well, ideally this should be open source, right? Surely and Yeah, so that's the thing, right? And yeah, so it's probably worthwhile exploring this, right?
Yeah, because I mean, people will if we got something already prepared, that's gonna be great to take the work away.
Yeah. Of course, the more we can reuse this thing, right, the better, right? So yeah, I just registered. And exercise in the box. Because the other thing that's nice about this is, it's also something that, like they can take with, right? It's kind of a nice model that information service technology. So I can't hear you, Tony.
Still can't hear.
Yeah, it's a silly thing. So I just run the video. It's just a short video to give an intro. Then we can all see it if I share.
We can't see. We're not seeing your face again.
Hold on a second. Let me do that. Oops. Hang on. I might need to bugger it up. All right.
So they have some cool exercises here. So
can you all see that?
Yeah, I can see it now.
Can you hear it?
No.
How do you make the video play into the sound?
Question. Maybe from the audio.
Pardon, sorry?
Maybe from the audio.
There's no good playing the video if you guys can't hear it.
No, I mean, I guess we can go and look at it ourselves afterwards, can't we?
Look, I can share my screen. Yeah. Let me share the screen because I got it here.
Okay.
So, actually, sorry, I just need to jump on his Zoom. I'm guessing.
We're gonna have to know how to do that sound thing. If there's any videos played in any presentation.
Continue, share my screen. Cool. All right, so you guys should be able to see can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, what they got is they have
like a selection, isn't it?
Yeah, they have a number of interesting, so that's discussion-based exercise. So that's an exercise that takes you to that, so this guy's, third party. So this ones are good, right? This is good stuff to talk about. And then actually simulation. So it's prepared. So
that's the one, isn't it?
Cyber threat simulation.
That's like 4 hours.
About the technical.
Ouch.
So when we do this exercise, who are we going to be? Which organization is it going to be?
Well, we get to decide a little bit now, right? So some of these, if I go like that.
Yeah, the resources is like some pre-information and stuff. So we can put that together.
Yeah, and then prepare exercise. So I think what happens is then the exercise, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So I think once you start it, so it does look like you kind of go through with everybody at the same time.
Yeah, but check the the packs that it mentions and stuff because it's got like documents and things.
on the
documentation.
Yeah. So you have to put together some documentation relevant to the.
Yeah. To the information.
Dennis just ticked all the boxes to say yes, he's done everything.
Yeah, we've done everything. Yeah, but I think that it would look like it's so here. Okay, so this is kind of facilitating these conversations, and then and then start to rate this. I guess this is the thing that this will become a bit different to do. Weird to do in a group, right? Because in a group, you're going to have different levels, right? So that's going to be a harder one to do here.
Yeah.
From
unless we do a thing where we prep a mythical company first with some done information about what what the company has and doesn't have.
Or we could try to do like then I think probably just to add a lot of this. So the questions are all like this. You could always do an anonymous poll, right? For the individuals on the call to say, in your environment, do you have a clear method for reporting security breaches and incidents, right?
Yeah, anonymized,
right? Yeah.
Well, you could always get everyone to log in and create an account themselves at the start, and then we just all run through it in their independent, own versions.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I'm going to need to drop off in 3 minutes.
No worries,
so I think that exercise sounds really good. I caught up with Phil about the cloud, about the control mapping, and that is really very kind of current around cloud security controls. And I'm talking today to the guy who's doing that stuff at Amazon. What are the other kind of big blocks of stuff that on cloud security? Is there anything I can help with? Or I think what I'm doing is going to really lay out the whole picture for media and supply chain, and then draw different themes around threat modeling or control mapping, or or risk risk evaluation. So that was what my plan was, and then also kind of tie in with Sebastian and the guys from ASVS about how the OWASP stuff and the maturity model comes in.
Cool.
So, but I don't know if I haven't seen the full schedule. Is there anything else that you need me for, or it sounds like I'll probably drop off now and
have a look at the links that I've shared.
Perfect.
We keep updating them. So if you say you are fine with the sessions, we're going to lock them in, and we're not going to update them any further.
Perfect.
Yeah. I'm gonna see if I can over the weekend do some work on the summit site and actually get like all the sessions in there, so we can start to see them side by side. Because I think that will help.
I thought it was supposed to be kicking across in the API.
Yes, we've
started. So but you still go on.
Yeah, we started creating the GitHub files, and Ben, I don't want to keep you too much. But the API needs to get to work, and I think Philippe is working on that.
Yeah, I think it's a good example of, I think we need to get first the basics right before we automate the thing, because I don't think we have a good picture of the schedule. And look, Didar is doing this on a PowerPoint, version of a spreadsheet, right, almost, right? And I think we need to get it in that kind of platform,
at least
so that it works, right? Look, the first version of the summit was done on a wiki, right? Come on, like we should see. We actually did it on top of Media Wiki, the whole thing. So it was interesting how we did the whole lot. So okay, man. All right, man.
See you guys. Have a great bank holiday weekend. Catch you next week.
Take care, man.
Cheers.
So I'm actually thinking that it might be actually really useful for a number of participants to go through this, right? Because it's...
Well, that's what I was thinking.
It's quite good, right?
So there's two ways to do it. Either we can put together a whole load of sort of pre-data, like a mythical, or a company, like a straw man company type setup with basic information, and then we use that as a group to go through this, or we talk through it, going through it, and everyone logs in and creates their own account for their own organizations and does it.
Yeah, that's true, right? Well, to be honest,
if people create their own accounts, they might jump around and they might not focus on the session. We might lose them.
Well, no, because I think that the point of this is to walk everybody right on where the conversation is, right?
Yes, but also we were trying to approach it from different personas and different layers of different groups of people.
Yes, I actually think they probably are different things, because I feel that this, to be honest, I think there's actually value trying to run one of these, because it's quite mature. It's also something that once you do it once, you can replicate it in the company. So you come out of it with something that you can do independently. I think doing it as a group probably allows everybody to chip in and what they think in a more anonymized way. So the logic, it's almost, I think maybe, Tony, is the mix of both, right? You have a conversation about it, and for the ones who want, they get to rate their own company, because actually that'll be private because it's their own data, right? So we can recommend that if you want to do this for your own company, do it, right? Of course, we don't expect you to share the details, but that allows everybody to go at the same pace and allows the target audience. Because in a way, the target audience of our sessions are the individuals that are going to run their own versions in the companies. So it's almost like we're training the trainers. It's almost like we're getting, and think about me and Tony, right? Actually, I never went through one of these, and actually probably quite useful, right? Because if I had done a couple of these, I'll have a much better mental picture. So it's a good example of a great resource being published, right? That's at the moment, you two did that, right? You never ran this, but actually there's probably a lot of great value. Probably there's one or two of these ones that are amazing, and maybe the others are all good, but
because we only have to run through one of these, and then, like you say, if people want to go away, because there's the other scenarios in there, they can then go away and do other ones in their own company and stuff.
Yeah. So I think, and actually this is something that we can probably even reach out to the NCAC, right, and say, hey, can you guys help us? Can you run this, right? And
that's what I'm just doing right now.
Exactly.
Message someone to see if they've got somebody who could who could like lead a session on using this.
Yeah. Because actually, if you look at the interesting about this is you can almost then have the same thing. You can have a daily one. As long as you have somebody who can run it, you can actually have one. And this probably can be done in an hour or two, right? Where you can almost pick which scenario you want, right? And then you join in. Because this is actually pretty mature, right? It's actually a cool tool. It works quite well, right? If we prepare things a little bit, I feel that this is actually a really good training sort of material, because the conversation that we will have during the session is going to be conversations about risk, about how you think about it, right? Even actually it'd be even interesting to see that if you get multiple individuals involved, you might have some executives who think, of course we have that, and the other ones go, well, no, we don't, right? that's just not that just won't happen, right? So I think this is an interesting one to play with, and it's also one that we can try, right? We can try this at the end of next week. We can try it out and see if it works, right? I just think that this can be the kind of exercise that works well in this kind of distributed world, right? Because it's nice, it's prescriptive, it's well structured, it's.
What's the time scale? What was the day for this one?
Well,
we have a date for this. This is going to be something new.
Yeah. So
I'm putting it on the Wednesday.
Would it be on the summit or the training?
Oh no, this is the summit. Yeah. But actually, look, it's actually not that big, right? Look, see that I just done it, right? So if you think about it, it's literally those 10 steps, right? So actually,
I have double booked this Wednesday afternoon session.
Day 2, day 3. Because it's not necessarily just cloud, is it? So we could put it in a. Oh yeah, there you go.
Like here.
So we could either do it under cloud or we could do it under miscellaneous. I don't know.
Oh, this is definitely miscellaneous. If I go back to my initial idea, which I maybe I want to do a bit of brainstorming, think about it, is I like the idea of coming up with a scenario that is reasonably open-ended, and then you let the the individuals, like let's say management or the people doing it or the client, decide what they want to do next. And actually, I really like this variable of, if we actually have another group, which is the attackers, we can then actually let them decide what are the next steps that they're taking, right, on this. And now if you think about from AWS compromise point of view, right, it is interesting, right? Because you can start with the premise to say, hey, we just heard that, we now know, we noticed some weird VMs being spin up, right? Or we noticed that, our cost just went up 50% last night, right? Or something. So then you can have the multiple scenarios played out, which also, for example, if you look at it from a defense point of view, would allow individuals to say, this is exactly what I would look for. I would look for this, I would look for that, I would do this, I would do that. So I think that should promote good collaboration on actually what will happen.
That's almost purple teaming.
Yeah. Well, it's basically is red and blue team, purple team, if you want, yeah. But tabletop, because we're not going to use live systems. But if you get multiple individuals with multiple skills, you would get a good mix of it.
So how are we gonna prepare for this one?
Let me think about it. Let me take that one. I think that's something that let me do a bit of a brainstorming on the best way to do that operationally.
Yeah, because that, like I say, take a bit of organisation, I think.
Yeah.
And coordination.
But actually, this is one of those things I did that. What we can do is we can actually run one of these with Glasswall, because I can just get the multiple players in the room, next week or the week after, right? And we can just see if it works, right?
Yeah, but we record and publish all these sessions.
Oh,
So
of course, yeah. No, but
laundry will be out on the open.
No, but it wouldn't. No, it will still be a simulation, right? It will still be an exercise, right? In fact, one of the things that my SRE team is doing really cool is they now do Failure Friday, which is really cool. So
we already have them here.
They fail specific systems, and it's almost like a training, and then to see how you actually got to do something about it.
Yes,
so.
But this exercise would reveal how prepared you are, and it might give some ideas.
Well, it depends. You don't have to do this on a live system, right? You can just say, how would we behave in this situation, right? So,
but it's not specific. It's anyway, yeah.
Cool.
Discuss it more.
So the other thing on the clouds, I feel that there is value in trying to get sessions that are focused on particular clouds products, because they make a difference, right? So if you look at, let's say, AWS now, AWS has amazing products now that for example, I want my team to see in action, right? You got guard duty, you got detective, you got that, you got AWS CloudTrail, you got all we can do with it. There's tons of products in there that I feel that it's worthwhile exploring. So, but I can put them on the schedule, and then we'll see if anybody bites on it. But this is the kind of thing, like in the past, for example, we had a good session on Lambda security, had good sessions on some other areas, because you see what the participants are interested in. So, which is a little bit different than that, because this will be specific sessions on specific topics.
Let me check something. Okay, the real world challenges is touching up on some of those. Where is it? Here.
Yeah. Yeah, but this is different, right? This is actually allowing an hour, 2 hours to be spent on a specific, cloud technology. In fact, for example, if you look at Azure has some actually really nice security tools these days, right? Like really, really good stuff they've added to it, which is worthwhile seeing. If there's a community that wants to talk about it, right? Who wants to share information about how they're doing it, right? So, cool.
So not as a training, but you're talking about sharing knowledge. So at the summit.
Yeah, well, I guess depends, right? Depends if you have somebody who can do a training on that tool, right? That would be training. I think the difference is if you have a one-to-many, if it's a training, if it's a how we use it and how people are using it, that's a summit session.
Okay.
What do you think, Tony, from your point of view of other sessions we could be doing on our cloud security stuff?
There was one like, I thought we sort of had it somewhere, which was around putting together like architectural security patterns for cloud.
Yeah.
So we could propose a couple of scenarios, and then as groups sort of throw stuff together, and then the output being a architectural pattern for reuse, say, web with RDS or something like that. I don't know.
So we have multi-cloud security patterns, and we also have how to provision cloud platforms securely. So both of these can go into details, and how to provision cloud platforms securely can go into detail of one platform.
Yeah, we could pick, say, AWS with using CloudFormation and Terraform or something.
Yeah, I think for those it will be good to bring some of them already to the table, because actually AWS already published a bunch of them, right? And actually then from a security point of view, then maybe doing a review on it. Or seeing this is far too complex, we could implement this, right? Or who has experience doing some of that stuff in the real world.
Yeah, so for that one, how to provision securely, the first hour could be how to, say, use AWS CloudFormation and put secure templates together. The second hour could be putting together a couple of different templates for common usage or something. I don't know, common scenarios.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a number of these, it's almost
the
like
outputs would be predefined templates.
Yeah, because I think an interesting move, if we can organize it, is to almost ask the participants to use the summit as an opportunity to share their things, because a lot of these things happens internally, where for example, I was involved in a couple of projects where the architecture that we came up with was amazing from a security point of view, right? AWS security, but we couldn't share it, or at least there wasn't a good medium to share it. And then bottom line, actually, we probably could have shared it, but there just wasn't a good place to share it at the time. So if we can ask the participants to bring their own patterns on those specific topics, then that's a good thing to get from the session, right? It's almost like the how I do it, right? That's a variation of how I do it.
Yeah. How do you do it? Bring it.
Badly.
Because sometimes the problem with a lot of these patterns is that sometimes it's very easy to define like a really complex architecture, and then you ask the question, okay, we agree this is good, who actually has done this in the real world, right? You should get like not a lot of hands. You realize that actually those patterns are over the top, right? Like CloudFormation is great, but it does produce some gigantic things that after a while become really hard to debug and really hard to manage.
Yeah.
That's why if you look at Pulumi and some of the new ones, they're actually moving into a more code base. In fact, actually, we should have Pulumi and that kind of code base coding model.
Yeah, get them in to do something.
Where? What?
Yeah.
Let me see.
So last while I think the team like literally implemented Pulumi in some of the services, and the reduction in the speed was incredible. The amount of time it took and the amount of speed that we went. So cool. This is good. All right, Tony. So you're gonna get somebody from MCSC.
Well,
Well, this is recorded, so don't.
I've sent a request, and I've sent a request to Dr. Ian Levy,
Yeah.
Whether he answers or not is a different kettle of fish. And I'll put a request to a couple of other people I know who are technical directors there, see if I can flush somebody out.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
So, cool.
Well, I think we're good. We can have an early one today.
Or we can stop recording and talk about some admin stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, do that.